Hey everyone, getting ready for that CE board exam, we're going to take a deep dive into scaffolding regulations today. Honestly, this is one area I'm really struggling with.
Yeah, I can see why. Lots of students find this stuff pretty tough.
Yeah?
I'm a master professor specializing in construction safety and regs, so hopefully I can help clear things up for you. Make you feel a bit more confident going into that exam.
Oh, that would be amazing. I mean, where do we even start? There's just so much to know.
Well, how about we start with the general requirements first? Like the stuff that applies to pretty much any type of scaffold you'll come across.
Yeah.
Think of it like the foundation for safe scaffolding, you know?
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So what are the absolute essentials I gotta know?
First off, materials. You absolutely can't mess around with quality here.
Right.
We're talking like strong, sturdy timber, got to be properly inspected, treated for any damage.
Okay.
And if your scaffold needs to go higher, well, you're moving into structural metals then. And those need to be officially approved, of course.
So it's all about choosing the right materials for the job and making sure they're like in tip-top shape.
Exactly.
What else is important?
Height restrictions. Huge.
Yeah.
Timber and bamboo scaffolds.
Yeah.
Strict limit, 20 meters max. Anything taller than 10 meters needs to be signed off by an engineer. And if you're going above 20 meters, you're talking structural steel then and the design, all on the engineer.
Okay, so I'm starting to see the pattern here. The taller the scaffold, the stricter the rules. And the more you need an engineer involved.
You got it. But remember, building the scaffold, that's just the beginning.
Right.
Maintenance and regular inspections, absolutely crucial.
Oh, okay.
Fastenings that can loosen up, weather can cause damage. Gotta stay on top of it.
That makes sense. Speaking of inspections, the source material mentioned something specific about scaffolds that have been left up for a while. Like, what's the deal with that?
Right, so any scaffold standing for more than 4 months needs a good, thorough inspection. And any repairs, of course, before anyone's allowed back on it. Kind of like a safety checkup, you know, minimize the risks.
Right. You wouldn't want to trust your safety to a scaffold that's been sitting out in the rain and wind for months without making sure it's still, you know, solid.
Exactly. And here's another super important point.
Okay.
Only qualified personnel can build, modify, or dismantle scaffolds. This ain't a DIY project, you know?
Right.
You need someone with the know-how, the experience to do it safely.
Got it. So no shortcuts, no winging it when it comes to scaffolds. Safety first, always.
Absolutely. And that goes for the materials too. Every single piece, planks, supports, everything needs a thorough inspection before it goes up on that scaffold. One weak component could compromise the whole thing.
Wow, I'm realizing there's way more to scaffolding than I thought. What about like ensuring the scaffold itself is strong and stable enough?
That's where things get really interesting.
Right.
Scaffolds need to be able to support twice the maximum expected load.
What? Twice the weight?
Yeah, workers, tools, materials, everything. You factor all that in, then double it.
Why so much?
It's a safety factor. Think about it. Unexpected stresses, wind, shifting ground, even just a bit of overload. That extra capacity helps make sure the scaffold won't buckle under pressure.
Oh, okay, that makes sense from a safety perspective.
Oh.
So how do you actually achieve that kind of strength?
Bracing, super important. Diagonal bracing, horizontal bracing, it all works together to prevent any lateral movement. Keep that scaffold stable.
So it's like creating this strong, interconnected framework that can hold up against forces from any direction.
Exactly. And here's a big no-no. You absolutely cannot splice supports together between points.
Real.
Each section needs to be one continuous solid unit. And of course, all horizontal members need to be securely fastened. No exceptions.
Okay, got it. No splicing and everything locked down tight. So we've covered the general rules, the strength, the stability, but there are so many different types of scaffolds out there.
I know, right?
How do I even begin to wrap my head around all that?
Don't worry, we'll break down each type, go over its specific regulations. But first, why don't we move on to some of the most common timber scaffold constructions you'll see out there.
Okay, yeah, let's do that. Timber scaffold, bring it on. All right, so timber scaffold types. I'm ready.
Okay, let's start with the traveling scaffold. It's essentially a platform on wheels.
Platform on wheels. Sounds kind of convenient.
Yeah, it is. But there's a catch. It gets its stability from a weighted base.
Okay.
Meaning you can only use it on firm, level surfaces.
Makes sense.
And just like any other scaffold, it needs proper bracing. Absolutely no moving it while someone's working on it, though.
Yeah. Moving a scaffold with someone on it, that just sounds like a disaster waiting to happen. Right. Okay, what about those scaffolds that hang from above?
You're talking about suspended scaffolds?
Right, yeah.
Those definitely require some extra attention, yeah. The fixed supports, the ones holding the whole thing up, they need to withstand 4 times the maximum load.
Whoa, 4 times.
Yep. Plus, the platform itself needs to be at least 25 centimeters wide, and you can't have more than 3 meters between those suspension points.
Okay.
Oh, and most importantly, the hoisting system needs to have safety mechanisms to prevent free fall.
Yeah, those safety mechanisms sound pretty crucial. What happens if those fail?
Yeah, it could be catastrophic. A falling suspended scaffold, that's a major safety hazard. That's why those safety mechanisms are non-negotiable.
Okay, I'm definitely seeing how important those safety features are. What other types of scaffolds are there?
We've got cantilever, job, figure, and bracket scaffolds.
Wow, there are a lot of names to remember.
I know, right? These types are all about secure support, fixing, and anchoring. One key thing to remember about brackets, though, they can't rely on any removable devices for support.
So no temporary supports or anything like that for brackets?
Yeah.
Got it. Are there any other timber scaffold types I need to know about?
Yep, one more common one. Ladder scaffolds. Pretty straightforward, but they do have their limitations.
Yeah, what are those?
They're only meant for light work, and the distance between the ladders can't be more than 3 meters.
Okay, so no heavy lifting or like stretching too far on those ladder scaffolds.
Yeah.
Got it. I think I'm starting to get the hang of these timber scaffold types.
Good.
Are there any other types that are like less common?
Yeah, there are a few special scaffold types. They have their own unique set of rules.
Oh, okay.
These are the ones that might trip you up on the exam if you're not careful.
Oh, good to know. All right, bring on those tricky scaffold types. I'm ready for the challenge.
All right, let's start with trestle scaffolds.
Okay.
They're pretty basic, but some important limitations. Can't use them above 5 meters high unless an engineer approves it.
Okay.
And if you need to go higher than 10 meters, you absolutely need an engineer sign off. And another thing, never use a trestle scaffold on top of a suspended scaffold.
Yeah, that seems like asking for trouble. Like a recipe for instability, right?
You got it. It's really crucial to understand the limitations of each type of scaffold and use them appropriately.
Right. Okay, what other special types are there?
Next up, outrigger scaffolds. These are the ones that kind of stick out from a wall.
Oh yeah, I've seen those.
The platform can only be a max of 8 centimeters away from the wall. And those outriggers, they need to be seriously secure. You don't want the whole thing swinging away from the building.
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
Okay, what about bamboo scaffolds? Are those even allowed?
They are, but lots of specific rules.
Okay.
Bamboo scaffolds can only be used for painting and light construction, and they need to be able to support 4 times the imposed load.
4 times. That's even more than the double load requirement we talked about before, right?
It is. Plus, there can only be 1 worker per span of bamboo, and the maximum span is 266 centimeters. Oh, and if you're working above 6.6 meters, safety belt's mandatory. Anything above 10 meters needs, you guessed it, engineer approval. And the final limit, bamboo scaffolds can never go higher than 20 meters.
Wow, that's a lot of restrictions on bamboo.
Yeah, it all comes down to safety, Bamboo might be strong, but you gotta use it within its limits.
Right, yeah. Okay, I'm definitely making a note of all those bamboo scaffold restrictions.
Okay.
So we've covered different scaffold types pretty well now, but what about the platforms, the runways, ramps, and stairs? Are there specific rules for those too?
Absolutely. All about fall protection, and the exam will definitely test you on this stuff.
Okay, bring on the fall protection knowledge. I'm all ears.
All right, here's the golden rule.
Oh.
If a worker could fall more than 2 meters, you need proper fall protection.
Okay, yeah.
That means platforms need to be at least 70 centimeters wide, runways and ramps at least 45 centimeters wide, or 70 centimeters if they're carrying materials.
Right.
Guardrails got to be 91 centimeters high, and toe boards 20 centimeters high.
Wow, that's a lot of specific measurements.
Yeah, I know it seems like a lot, but it's all about logic. Higher the risk, stronger the protection needs to be. And speaking of measurements, let's talk about platform widths for different situations. For painters and decorators, the minimum is 30 centimeters. But if you've got general workers with tools, bumps up to 50 centimeters. And if those workers are above 2 meters and have both tools and materials, you need a full meter-wide platform. Add vehicles to the mix. Got to go even wider, 1.5 meters.
Okay, so the platform width depends on the workers, the tools, the materials, the height, and even if there might be vehicles.
Yep.
It's like a puzzle.
It is, kind of. And a few more things to keep in mind. Platforms got to be clear of obstructions and securely fastened. The minimum design load is 650 kilograms per square meter. And overhang can't be more than 4 times the plank's thickness. unless it's got extra support.
So no leaning way out over the edge unless there's something underneath to hold that extra weight.
Got it. What about runways and ramps? Any special rules for those?
Yeah, the maximum slope for those is a 2.3 ratio. And if you need footholds, they got to be at least 5 by 8 centimeter step and laths, spaced no more than 46 centimeters apart.
Wow. Okay. This is a lot of information. I'm kind of feeling overwhelmed. I know. It's a lot to take in. But remember, these regulations, they're here to keep workers safe. It's not just about memorizing facts for the exam. It's about understanding how these rules translate into real-world safety.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's not just theory, it's about protecting people's lives,
Exactly. And to help you understand how these regulations apply in practice, how about we shift gears and go through some real-world scenarios and case studies?
Okay, yeah. Walking through those examples really helped. It's all starting to click into place now.
I'm glad to hear that. It's one thing to know the rules, but seeing how they actually work in different situations, that's what's going to help you, not just on the exam, but, out there in the field.
Right, absolutely. Speaking of the exam, can we do a quick review of the main points we covered today, just to make sure I'm ready for those scaffolding questions?
Of course. Let's go back to the beginning.
Yep.
We started with the general requirements, using the right materials, knowing those height restrictions, and understanding the importance of maintenance and inspection. Those are the fundamentals. Apply to every type of scaffold.
Right. The non-negotiables, no matter what kind of scaffold we're talking about.
Exactly. Then we moved on to strength and stability. Got to know how to calculate load capacity, why bracing is so important, and why you never, ever splice supports.
Got it. Strong materials, solid construction, and no cutting corners.
You got it. Then all those different timber scaffold types. Traveling, suspended, cantilever job, figure, bracket, ladder scaffolds. Each one, its own set of rules, its own limitations.
I'll admit it was a lot to take in at first, but once I understood the reasoning behind those limits for each type, it all made a lot more sense.
That's the key. It's not just about memorizing, it's about understanding. And then we had those special scaffold types: trestle, outrigger, and bamboo. They might not be as common, but they could definitely pop up on the exam.
Yeah, those felt like trick questions just waiting to happen, but I feel much more confident about them now.
Good. And finally, we talked about platforms, runways, ramps, and stairs. Fall protection, a huge part of scaffold safety. Knowing those width requirements, guardrail heights, toe board heights, super important.
Definitely. Especially after those real-world scenarios we talked about. Really puts things into perspective.
For sure. As you keep studying, keep practicing with those different scenarios, the more you apply these regulations, the more confident you'll become.
Awesome. I feel like I've gone from totally lost to actually having a good grasp of this stuff.
Yeah.
This deep dive's been a huge help.
I'm really glad to hear that. And remember, mastering scaffolding regulations, it's not just about the exam. It's about being a competent engineer, someone who puts safety first.
You're right. It's about real life, not just theory. Thanks for guiding me through all this. It's been incredibly helpful.
You're very welcome. Good luck with that exam.
Thanks. And to all our listeners out there, thanks for joining us for this deep dive into scaffolding regulations. We hope you found it helpful as you prepare for that CE board exam. Remember, safety is everything, and these regulations are in place to protect workers and make sure construction is done safely. Good luck with the exam, everyone.